Number 1. Wife's Revenge. I am not a good person. I realize that. And I am not writing this story in order to get your sympathy either. I know the things that I've done in life, and I take full responsibility for them. I am very old now. I know that I don't have many years left. I'm terrified. I can't even tell you how scared I am about the end of my life. I have done some bad things in my life, and I know these things. I never believed in an afterlife, though. I guess maybe if I did, I may not have done the things I have done. I probably still would have. I was married for 45 years. I was a terrible husband. I was both verbally and physically abusive to my wife. I won't blame this on my upbringing, even though my father was abusive to my mom, and he taught me that the man was the head of the house no matter what. It doesn't excuse my behavior. Behavior is a choice. And I was a horrible husband. While I never seriously injured my wife physically, I did hurt her bad mentally. And when I hit her, I did occasionally leave bruises. Keep in mind this wasn't every day or every month, but it did happen. She passed away before me. Even then, I really didn't realize the gravity of what I did. However, I did learn what it was like to be alone. It was then that I realized how painful it was to not have her around. It was then that I realized that I was a worthless piece of crap who didn't realize what I had. But I did realize what I lost. About 6 months after being alone, I was asleep in bed. I woke up for some reason I didn't know. It was then that I saw my wife standing at the foot of my bed. She was looking at me with the most hateful look I had ever seen on a human being. She was only there for a second, and when I blinked she was gone. I assumed it was just my imagination and guilt. About a month later, I was taking a bath. While I was laying in the warm water, the door to the bathroom, which was completely locked, suddenly flew open and the doorknob hit the wall. There was no one in the doorway, but I did feel a really cold breeze blow into the bathroom. Then I felt something, arms on my shoulders, and it pushed me under the water. I was shocked and struggled, trying to throw off whatever was doing this to me. At the moment I felt I would drown, though. It stopped. I was able to resurface and breathe again. That was the second incident. The third incident came a few days later. I collected antique plates, displayed on many shelves on the wall. While I was watching television, one of them flew across the room and nearly hit me. I wasn't sure how it happened, but it was frightening. Those 3 incidents were scary, but they don't compare to what the worst thing that happened was. I was sleeping in bed when something woke me up. I wasn't sure what it was at first, but suddenly I couldn't breathe. I felt hands on my neck and something began choking me. It was just as scary as the bathtub. Again, I felt I was going to die. I tried to grab whatever was choking me, but I couldn't. It was like it could grip me, but I couldn't grip it. As my air was completely gone, and I felt I was about to die, I suddenly saw a figure appear at the foot of my bed. It was my wife again, and it was then that I realized that she was punishing me for being the awful husband that I was. She was getting revenge, and I was going to die right then. And then suddenly, she was gone, and I was able to breathe again. I felt the air rushing into my lungs. I had never felt as close to dying as I did that night. I haven't seen my wife again, but I fear her. I fear she is always watching me. I fear she will appear again, and maybe this time she won't be as merciful. In case something happens to me, I wanted to tell this story. I know I deserve to be scared. My fear cannot compare to what I did to her. I just know one day she'll probably kill me, and to outsiders, it will look like it happened naturally.
I always knew that my grandma's house was haunted, ever since I was a kid, and it terrified me. So, when my parents broke up and me and my dad had to move in with my grandma for a while, I was petrified and pleaded with my dad not to go. However, I was a child that didn't understand the gravity of a 29-year-old banking assistant losing his home and wife in the same week. We settled in and I found it impossible to sleep without a light on in the room, and even then, it was a struggle. Looking back now, as an adult, most of the weird and strange noises I heard were probably pipes and floorboards, but at the time, the quietest sound made me freak out, and these sounds occurred constantly. At first, I never saw anything or heard anything concrete. At first, it was just a feeling of the four walls of the room closing in on me, a feeling of pure dread and terror, a feeling that made me scared to look out from under my duvet. I was young but had never had an aversion to the night. At my old house, I revelled in the dark and could scarce sleep with any form of light. Everything I've described so far could be put down to one of three things. Either I was imagining things as a little kid would, my parents' divorce may have messed with me more than I thought, or the house was in fact haunted. The final experience I'm going to tell you, in my opinion, leaves only one option. It was late, easily 3 or 4 in the morning, and the night was hot and stuffy. My gran never had AC and my mouth was dry. I decided I needed water as I was at the point where it was difficult to swallow. However, in the 6 or so months we had been staying there, I had never once left my bed in the night. I was just too scared. It was a battle at this point. My thirst was becoming unbearable, and thinking about it made me all the more uncomfortable. The sounds that night had been less active than usual, and I decided to grow a set and go for it. I quietly crept out of my room and onto the landing and rushed down the stairs as a chill ran down my spine. You'll need to know that my grandma's stairs go down and then turn right before going down another 3 or 4 steps and then into the hallway. I had reached the bottom of the main set and had my hand firmly on the banister. I turned to walk the final few steps when something small and bony gave me a powerful shove between my shoulder blades. I went flying forward and hit the stone floor with an almighty slap, waking my dad and grandma in the process. My dad had turned the light on within seconds, and to my sheer terror, there was no one or nothing on the stairs. I told my dad what had happened, and he dismissed it as tiredness and told me I just fell. I knew I hadn't. I felt it. It was like an old bony hand. I knew, even if I had fell, something still touched me, and I believe it was attempting to hurt me. My dad still didn't believe me, and as if casting the final vote, my grandma sided with my dad, telling me I shouldn't try to traverse the stairs in the dark. And that was it. We moved out weeks later when my dad found a 2-bedroom house for us to live in. I brought it up to my dad in recent years, but he doesn't remember. From his point of view, it's just another time his child fell over. To me, it's much more defining. I believe it was a ghost or spirit. I'm not denying that. However, I'm not trying to convince you either. I have given you the evidence and you can make your own mind up. I just thought some of you may wish to hear this.
Number 3. Babysitting. Like a lot of girls in high school, I did my fair share of babysitting. It was an easy job that usually paid pretty decently. There were about 3 families that I regularly sat for. However, I once got a referral that I wish I had never received. It was for a family that was friends with the family I normally would babysit for, and they offered me about double what other families offered me, and there was no way that I could turn it down. When I got to the house, I was vastly impressed by it. It was not only huge, but it was obviously a very old but well-kept house. Driving up to it took me down a very long driveway. The front yard was enormous and filled with trees. There was a fountain right in front of the house as well. I understood why they were able to afford to pay me so much. I was babysitting one boy who was 8 years old and one girl who was 6. I automatically assumed that the 2 of them would be little terrors. I mean, why else would the family be paying so much to babysitters then? But they weren't that way at all. Both were extremely well behaved. Meeting them reminded me a bit of the movie The Sound of Music, when Maria met the Von Trapp children. I mean, not really, but they were just as well behaved. The family was going to be gone all night. They showed me a room that had a canopied bed in it. That was something that I only ever saw in the movies. It was for me to sleep in if I got tired. There was an intercom in there as well, so the children could check in with me if they needed. I was overwhelmed, really. I sort of felt like I should be paying them for letting me stay there for the night. After the family left, me and the kids settled in for the night. We had pizza for dinner, which is always one of the joys of babysitting as far as I was concerned. We watched some cartoons and then washed up for bed. I put both kids to bed, and I had absolutely no problems with them at all. The room I was given had a television and cable in it, so I decided that I would go ahead and settle in for the night. I turned the light off to watch television. When I did, I noticed that there was a light shining through the bedroom window. The window faced the backyard. I knew that once I decided to go to sleep, that I would not be able to sleep with that light shining through. I got up to close the curtain and looked in the backyard for the first time. There was a garden back there, another fountain, and 2 sheds. But what caught my attention was in front of the second shed. There was a little girl who looked to be about 5 or 6 years old. She was wearing a white nightgown, and she was crawling along the cobbled ground towards the water fountain. I freaked out, immediately thinking it was the little girl I was babysitting, wondering how she could have gotten outside. I quickly ran to her room, only to find her sound asleep. Her bedroom was also facing the back of the house, so when I looked out again, the little girl was still crawling. It was weird, watching a 5 or a 6-year-old crawling, but she crawled over to the fountain and then, quicker than I had ever seen a human being move in their life, jumped into and then under the water. Freaked out, seeing a little girl drowning, I ran out of the room and down the stairs. I ran out into the backyard and over to the fountain. Searching everywhere, I didn't see any trace of a little girl. I looked throughout the entire fountain and figured she must have gotten out of it. I knew I'd have to try and find her. I looked up and came face to face with a really large man, only he wasn't a man. I could sort of see through him. His eyes were bleeding, and it looked like the eyes were removed from the sockets. He was only there a minute, and then he was gone. And it was then that I realized I had seen a ghost. Scared, I quickly ran back into the house and I locked all the doors. Yeah, I realize how that sounds. But even if it couldn't protect me, I wanted to do it. Then I checked on the kids again, and they were fine. I spent the rest of the night in my guest room. But the following day, I asked the parents if anything weird had ever happened there. They knew immediately what I was talking about. They explained that several people had seen a ghost of a little girl jumping into the fountain, and a man with no eyes. However, they didn't know if anything had ever happened in the house. Generally, every babysitter who saw it quit. I didn't quit. It was scary, but the money was too good. I never, ever saw that ghost again, though. Hey y'all, Killer Orange Cat here. I'd like to thank Brothers Jackson Videos for taking part in this collaboration. Their channel is awesome, and we collabed a long time ago. They were inactive for a while, but have been back, and have been putting out great content. Please check out their half of the collaboration in the link provided, and subscribe while you're there. If you want to see text for the first and last story, it's available in the Killer Orange Cat subreddit. There is information in the description to get that to you. Please also take a look at the Killer Orange Cat merchandise store. There's a link there as well. In the meantime, if you like this video, please let me know by hitting the like button. If you're not already subscribed to Killer Orange Cat, please consider hitting the subscribe button below, or using the icon of my cat Ichigo that will appear at the end of the closing. Feel free to leave me a comment to let me know what you think of the video, and consider sharing it with someone you think might enjoy it. You can always follow Ichigo and myself on Facebook and Twitter using the links in the description. If you have a story you'd like narrated on Killer Orange Cat, please send it to the address provided in the description. My main requirement is that the story is original, meaning it has not yet been read on any other YouTube channel. And whatever you do, please don't forget to make sure to check in your closet and check under your bed, because you never know where a Killer Orange Cat might be hiding. Good night.